Part 98. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 980. Latest website. There was a simultaneous translator sitting next to John at the scene. Everything Lu Feng said had to be translated. Not many people paid attention to Lu Feng's report at the scene. Senior managers like Wei Yandan, Zhu Lidong, and Liukan were more concerned about this year's equity dividends. They know the company's situation very well. Focusing on the corporate layout next year and seeking new market growth points, apart from John, only Zhuang Yuntian is left. Zhuang Yuntian is more eager than anyone else to know the R/U0026D budget of GFN Electronics next year. Currently, GFN Electronics Group is developing two engineering projects. The first phase of the Tianjin extra-large factory has been completed, and the second phase will be launched next year. The headquarters building is also progressing steadily. The Tianjin factory will be operational next year, and the output is insufficient. The situation will never return. At the same time, the new factory will produce a new generation of integrated circuit processors, which are mainly used in new generation TVs, pagers, etc., and will also receive orders from external parties, taking our profit methods to a higher level. This year's development of overseas markets has been stable and improving. Although there are some ups and downs and difficulties, we can overcome them. The overseas market is a new soil and a new blue ocean. Of course, the competition in overseas markets is also more intense. We have to face the most powerful companies in the world and compete with them, but I believe that through differentiated competition in product positioning, we will definitely be able to find a different path and find our own positioning. Next, let me briefly talk about the debt situation of enterprises. At present, the overall debt ratio of enterprises has been reduced, including bank loans, local loans, corporate loans, etc. The total debt totals 3 billion yuan. Let me tell you, this includes many loans for local land, investment promotion, operating loans for subordinate enterprises, etc. The debt-to-equity ratio is less than 30%, and the overall situation is very good. Lu Feng has not paid back the money he owed before. The decline in the proportion is due to corporate financing, fixed asset investment, and an increase in overall assets. The relevant data sheets are on everyone's desk. You can take a detailed look at them. Next, I will talk about the overall situation of the group's affiliated companies. As of now, we have 17 branches, 36 affiliated companies, and holding companies. 29 companies, all centered on core industry layouts, have formed raw materials, parts processing, factories and other enterprises, and the industrial chain autonomy rate has reached 40%. Among the global supporting industries, our supporting industries are definitely the most complete, and I also believe that only the most complete supporting industries can withstand potential risks in the future changing business environment. This is a conference to get to know the bottom of the family. It is necessary to tell everything about GFN Electronics, how many assets, debts, subsidiaries, branches, industry chain autonomy rate, inherent assets, patent assets, industry status, and future development direction. Everything must be explained clearly. In the past, Lu Feng, as the absolute controller of the company, only needed to know these things. But now it is different. Many things have completely changed. Even if it is not a listed company, it still needs to make explanations to investors. Lu Feng stood on the stage and talked non-stop for more than 2 hours. Most of the time, he did not need to look at the manuscript in his hand. He only looked down when he was talking about some specific figures. When lunchtime came, everyone broke up and went to the restaurant to eat. Feng Xiao followed Lu Feng closely, wanting to come up and talk. Hurry up and eat. The afternoon meeting is tight and there is only half an hour for dining. Lu Feng saw what he wanted to say and sat down to eat. At 12:30, the meeting continued. In the morning, the company's development was introduced, and in the afternoon, next year's development direction and budget were discussed. Lu Feng sat below, glanced at John who was not far away, stood up and walked over, whispering, "As for the R/U0026D investment next year, how much will you support us in investing?" John raised his head, glanced at Lu Feng, and asked, "How much do you think we should invest?" "I think we should invest 1 billion, Lu Feng said seriously. 1 billion. I'm talking about US dollars, Lu Feng said solemnly. As soon as this number came out, John's expression changed. It was a bit too much to invest a third of the money at once. The first thing he thought of was that Lu Feng wanted to take this opportunity to invest in the company. "The money is transferred into your own money." "What's the reason?" John frowned and said, "You didn't communicate with me before coming here." "The reason is very simple. We need the right to speak. We need the right to speak in the fields of integrated circuits and communications," Lu Feng said solemnly. "These two aspects cannot be achieved overnight. What I need to see is returns, understand?" John said to Lu Feng, "I am also under performance pressure, so don't think that this money is mine. Of course I know, but for a company as big as Schroeder Group, it is no longer entirely based on commercial considerations. The global competition for high-end manufacturing has begun. We need to give Jiafeng some special missions. It is indeed impossible to move forward in a short time. The industry is top, but if we can enter this industry, it is completely different," Lu Feng whispered. "Europe needs it." Obviously, Lu Feng's attitude towards this matter has exceeded the scope of John's responsibilities. When he originally invested in Jiafeng Electronics, he did have this consideration in mind, but 1 billion was too much. "I need to go back and report it?" "Okay, let's not make any decisions about the R/U0026D company's funding at this meeting." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he glanced at the stage and walked over. Zhuang Yuntian had already noticed Lu Feng muttering to John there and wanted to know what the two said, but he couldn't hear and could only watch eagerly. Returning to the stage, Lu Feng continued, "The main agenda in the afternoon is the budgets and goals of each department for the new year, as well as the direction of market development next year. This year, we established the Electrical Appliance City, which will also be an important terminal retail method for Jiafeng in the future. Based on the experience learned from developed countries, whoever becomes the leader in the electrical appliance city industry will have the initiative in terminal sales. Therefore, we plan to make a total investment of no less than 2 billion yuan in the next 10 years to actively promote the implementation of electrical cities. Currently, we are only conducting pilot experiences in first-tier cities." Lu Feng stood on the stage and boasted a lot about electrical appliance city. He needed to find a direction for this shareholder, a fantasy that would allow Jiafeng Electronics to continue to develop rapidly. "The reason why I set a long-term goal of 10 years is because I set too much time, and before I have time to operate, others will question my investment speed." The chapter about the electrical appliance city lasted for half an hour, showing the future prospects in terms of crowds, one-stop shopping, suppression of competitors, and brand promotion. "Don't say that Feng Xiao is so inexperienced." Zhuang Yuntian was a little excited when he heard it and kept writing it down. "Compared with Electrical City, we must pay attention to overseas markets. Since Electrical City is heavy on assets and requires too much initial investment, it needs to be done steadily. Overseas investment will explode next year. As we all know, due to some well-known the reason is that we don't have many choices in overseas markets, especially next year, which is expected to be even better. The world is very big, and no one can make the world target us with just one sentence. In order to avoid causing heavy losses, I believe that in addition to neighboring countries, overseas markets should actively explore the European market. There are many developed countries in the European market and the market consumption capacity extremely strong is our best choice. Next year, I will also personally lead the team, mainly to conquer the European market." Here I can guarantee to shareholders that in the European market next year, the net profit will exceed 1 billion yuan. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was in an uproar. Zhu Lidong raised his head and looked at the stage with wide eyes. Is he crazy? Now that GFN Electronics really has no business in the European market, Lu Feng starts boasting a net profit of 1 billion? This may be a bit unconvincing. But Wei Yandan, Liuqin, Zhu Lidong, and others who know Lu Feng all know that he is not a person who is good at boasting, so there is only one possibility left, that is, the Europeans will suffer. Of course I know. People don't believe me when I say it like this. However, I personally have some abilities in marketing and marketing. Although Zhu Lidong is now in charge of the marketing department, I feel that I have to go to so many developed countries. In a place like this, it is not difficult to make a profit of 1 billion yuan. When it comes to such a difficult moment and I need to stand up, then I am absolutely bound to do it. John looked at Lu Feng on the stage and took the lead in applauding. If he could do it, $1 billion in R/U0026D expenses would not be a problem. Such a person would definitely be any investor's favorite professional manager. There was a round of applause. Lu Feng raised his hand and pressed it, and continued, the next step is about the budget of each department. There will be a list in this regard. You can take a look at it. Last year, there was more construction in the factory and the budget was larger. This year relatively little, mainly due to a slight increase in the budget of the marketing department, and more due to an increase in the budget of the overseas business department. After everyone raised their hands to express approval, Zhu Lidong said happily to Liuqin next to him, we have an extra 100 million, so we still have to talk to Mr. Lu. Life has been easier this year, and it has doubled. Liuqin was confused. Lu Feng went directly to the next item, the nomination process for senior management. He had just written down the budgets of all departments, but there was no R/U0026D company. Didn't we agree on 6 to 7 billion US dollars? Why didn't you tell us? Liuqin was a little anxious. Zhu Lidong was sulking at the side, looking like a child, and whispered, it's over, Mr. Lu doesn't want you anymore, he has no money. If you are so poor, you won't be so poor as to me, Liuqin said angrily, look at how hopeless you are. It's only 100 million yuan, which is still RMB. I doubled it, and you don't have a dime. Zhu Lidong chuckled and said, please treat Mr. Lu to a meal, or I'll wear some shoes for you. Let me tell you, I asked Lu Feng to go to the sauna the day before yesterday. I've found a dozen girls. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 981. Latest website. Liuqin is not like Zhu Lidong. He only thinks about circuits all day long. Zhu Lidong kept talking to him. After the meeting ended on the first day, Liuqin simply couldn't bear it anymore. Zhu Lidong taught him that when it's time to flatter the leader, he has to flatter him. Now the company is not owned by Mr. Lu alone, so there are some routines. The routines should be used when they are needed. Lu, Mr. Lu. Liuqin walked up to Lu Feng with a wine glass in hand and said, looking unfamiliar, I want to toast you. Lu Feng looked at him stumbling and didn't think much. He casually touched the cup and took a sip. Are you free tonight? I'll treat you to a sauna and find a dozen little girls. An hour later, in Lu Feng's office, Li Chang and Zhu Lidong stood in front of the desk with their heads lowered. They felt like two elementary school students. Zhu Lidong almost cursed Li Chang in his heart. How could this man not be able to resist teasing at such an old age? How old are you two? Is the company a kindergarten? There is a president of the marketing department and a president of the R/U0026D company. I was embarrassed to say it at the dinner just now. Lu Feng said to Liuqin, Mr. Lu, how old are you? Do you believe whatever I say? What he said was both nose and eye. Besides, he really didn't mention the budget of the R/U0026D company. Lyukin said aggrievedly. He said, please take a sauna and find a girl. Lu Feng was really annoyed and speechless. One executive was coaxing another executive. Wasn't Zhu Lidong just bullying him because he had no communication skills? One dares to say it, the other dares to believe it, and the most terrifying thing is that he also takes action. Lu Feng scolded the two of them. What kind of words do you want shareholders to hear? Is it embarrassing? I was just joking. I didn't expect Mr. Lu to take it seriously, Zhu Lidong said with his head hanging down. You know clearly that he does research and development all day long, but you still tease him? You are in the market, so what? When you are developing markets outside, you also use saunas and find a dozen girls, Lu Feng asked Road. No, absolutely not, Zhu Lidong waved his hands repeatedly. I was wrong. From now on, I must live in harmony with my colleagues and love each other. Lyukin was extremely angry. If this spread, it would definitely become a joke. But he also knows that Zhu Lidong has learned from Lu Feng in this regard. In terms of interpersonal relationships in the company, he is definitely the best, but he is different. Sometimes he can't manage the idiots in the R/U0026D company well. I don't know what kind of trouble I want to cause all day long. I'm a man who teases cats and dogs. What free time do you have? If you have such free time, I'll send you on a business trip to Europe next year, Lu Feng scolded. When Zhu Lidong heard this, he immediately became anxious. He raised his head and said with a smile, I can't do it. If I go to Europe, won't it ruin the future of the company? You have to take action in this kind of thing. Don't think I can do well in China. I won't be able to stand out in front of you, and besides, my English isn't very good. Lyukin raised his head and said, you can learn. Shut up and no one will treat you as a mute, Zhu Lidong whispered. This kind of thing must not happen again in the future. If it happens again, do you believe I will report it to the whole company? Shame on this person, Lu Feng said to Zhu Lidong, get out. Zhu Lidong nodded and walked out the door. He closed the door and breathed a sigh of relief. He really didn't expect that a man as big as Lyukin could really do such a thing. Isn't this a fool? He muttered something and quickly left work. Lu Feng looked at Lyukin, half of his anger was gone, and said, sit down. I didn't mention the R/U0026D company's budget because it was temporarily increased. I plan to increase this year's R/U0026D budget to $1 billion because it is temporary and will be needed later. I didn't say anything about the board of directors resolution. $1 billion, or US dollars. Lyukin raised his head and his eyes were full of disbelief. How could he spend $1 billion on his own? Mr. Lu, is $1 billion too much? Lyukin knew in his heart that for how much money he would be given, he would have to do a lot of work. With so much money thrown at him, next year's tasks would definitely be heavy. How much is it? How much money you have is useful. When it is approved, I hope you will achieve good results this year. At the very least, we should be more assertive in the international business community. Lu Feng looked at him and said, okay, don't tell anyone about this, including people within the group, just go back first. After Lyukin left, Lu Feng sat in his seat and let out a long sigh of relief. The next 2 years were destined to be non-stop. It was necessary to go out for a walk during the new year to relax his mood. After briefly washing up, Lu Feng went to rest. John called the senior management of Schroeder Investment Group in the evening, held a conference call, and communicated the matter with the British senior management. At present, investment in integrated circuits is very promising. The question is, after the results are produced, who owns this company? Asked the British Ministry of Science and Technology on the other end of the phone. I think it should belong to us, after all we paid for it. I think this is like a woman giving birth to a child. She first makes sure the child is hers. John couldn't help laughing and said into the phone, "We are currently the first major shareholder. It can be said that we have absolute control." That's good. In terms of high-end manufacturing, Europe as a whole doesn't really want to conflict with the United States. If it can do it, it will be a good thing for us. Okay, then I know what to do. The phone call lasted for more than an hour, and all parties evaluated the possibility of GFN electronics in integrated circuits. They believed that GFN electronics should be allowed to invest $2 billion in testing, and at the same time, a balance should be achieved in corporate development. We cannot end up with just AR/U0026D company and lose the market. The next day, at 9 o'clock in the morning, everyone in the conference room sat down. John glanced at Lu Feng and whispered, "We agree on the R/U0026D budget, but we need to recruit a professional financial team to the R/U0026D company." Lu Feng thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. After this meeting, Schroeder's Group Finance will also move into the group headquarters, which means that GFN has moved from a private enterprise to a shareholder-owned enterprise. The host came up to the stage and said a few opening remarks, and then said, "Today we officially began to select the new group management, including the chairman of the board of directors, secretary of the board of directors, directors of the board of directors, supervisors of the board of directors, group executive president, rotating president, etc. Next, let's select the chairman of the board of directors and nominate candidates." The host opened the folder in his hand. There was only one name on it. He raised his hand and said, "Mr. Lu Feng." The major shareholders at the scene looked at the paper in front of them and wrote down their votes. As the votes were collected, the host counted the votes on the spot and said, "Let us congratulate Mr. Lu Feng for being unanimously elected as the first CEO of GFN Electronics Group's board of directors." Official. Lu Feng stood up and bowed behind him to express his gratitude. There was not much joy on his face. Now the board of directors needed him. Of course, the candidate only had one name. In a few years, he might not be the only one. Next, select the secretary of the board of directors and nominate candidates Wei Yandan, Zhu Lidong, and Li Changqing. In the end, this position fell on Li Changqing. GFN Electronics is not a listed company, and the secretary of the board of directors has a somewhat empty position, as a person who communicates between shareholders. In one morning, Wei Yandan, Zhu Lidong, Du Guoying, John, Feng Xiao, and others were elected as directors of the board of directors. Lu Feng also served as the group's executive president. The first round of rotating president was Zhu Lidong, every 6 months. John didn't understand the position of rotating president. Lu Feng also explained to him that the rotating president was taken from Huai by Lu Feng in later generations. Each executive would serve for 6 months in a rotating cycle to avoid the company becoming too big. A single decision maker does not understand the market or the development of subordinate enterprises, and makes wrong decisions, causing losses to the company. Secondly, it was also to avoid fighting between departments within the group. During his tenure as rotating president, he was the top decision maker of the entire group. After this meeting, even Lu Feng had to listen to Zhu Lidong. With the existence of the rotating president, everyone has 6 months to hold the power. If your department wants to mess with me, I will mess with you when I get up, so there is no need for everyone to mess with it internally. To put it bluntly, the emperor takes turns sitting. At 11:30 p.m., the meeting ended, and there was only one closing left in the afternoon. Lu Feng stood up and shook hands with everyone politely. Feng Xiao ran over and whispered, "Brother Feng, I chose you." "I know," Lu Feng looked at him and said, "How is your dad doing lately?" "It's good. It's almost the Chinese New Year and I'm going to be discharged from the hospital." Before Feng Xiao came, Jenkin had specifically told him that if Lu Feng asked about Mr. Feng's physical condition, he should tell him so. "That's good," Let's celebrate the new year first. Looking at the situation at the scene, Zhuang Yuntian clearly felt that everything would be over in the afternoon. He walked up to Lu Feng anxiously and asked, Mr. Lu, you haven't announced the R/U0026D company's budget yet, have you? What's wrong? Lu Feng stopped and asked. I just want to know what the R/U0026D company's budget is next year, Zhuang Yuntian asked. This matter has been decided by the core members of our board of directors. If you want to know, I suggest you spend more money and become a core member. Lu Feng smiled and walked forward. I am a member of the board of directors and an investor. I am qualified to know everything. This is the core data for the development of the company. Besides, why don't you elect me as a director? Zhuang Yuntian chased after him, very dissatisfied, and said, this is very unfair to small shareholders. Then what? Since you feel it's unfair, I suggest you get the debt for equity swap agreement and I'll give you the money. Lu Feng looked at him and said. Zhuang Yun was trembling for a while, but there was nothing he could do. He gritted his teeth and said, just wait. Just wait and see. Lu Feng ignored him and walked towards the restaurant. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 982. Latest website. This is the case for small shareholders in large companies. It's okay if they are just bullied. Now GFN Electronics has signed a non-dilution agreement with all shareholders. Once this agreement expires, there will be several rounds of dilution, and it is probably in Zhuang Yuntian's hands. Not even half of the equity is left. Zhu Lidong seemed a little excited. Now he can be said to have great power. The moment it was announced on the stage, he was already the rotating president of the group and had absolute planning and operation rights for GFN Electronics for the next 6 months. Wei Yandan, Du Guoying, Zhu Lidong, and Liukan walked side by side, chatting and laughing. Wei Yandan joked, Mr. Zhu, you are in great power this time. You have to take care of me in these 6 months. Yes, yes, now we have to quickly flatter Mr. Zhu, Du Guoying said with a smile, give us an increase in our budget, especially for publicity, which is very important this year. No problem, Zhu Lidong said with a sullen smile, I have been covering you for the past 6 months. If anyone dares to mess with you and take my name, not even Mr. Lu. I am the boss now. It's over. If Mr. Lu hears what you said, I will give you a scolding, Liukan said from the side, there must be a guard on your lips. A few people walked to the elevator. Zhu Lidong said with an exaggerated look, it's okay. When I saw him, I said, that Xiaolu, you have to make good use of the European market next year and ship it within 3 months. If you don't get the result, I will ask you for it when the time comes. Du Kuyingle's mouth almost burst into tears. When he looked back, his smile suddenly froze. He stood up straight in a hurry and coughed twice. Others laughed happily. It felt like he was really happy today. Zhu Lidong was a good man. When he saw Du Guoying becoming reserved, and because he always felt a chill on his back, he turned around and looked directly into Lu Feng's eyes. Mr. Lu, Zhu Lidong forced out a smile that was uglier than crying, and thought to himself, how can he memorize it these days? Everyone turned around and saw Lu Feng. Wei Yandan covered her mouth and laughed. This man got up and hit the muzzle of his gun. The elevator had opened. Lu Feng looked at him and said, Mr. Zhu, don't call me like that. Xiao Lu is holding the elevator button for you. Get in quickly. Zhu Lidong felt miserable at the moment when he saw everyone else gloating about their misfortune. After getting on the elevator, Wei Yandan said, Mr. Lu, today's meeting is over. There is a dinner party tonight. Are there any receptions later? Asked Mr. Zhu. Lu Feng waved his hand. Zhu Lidong originally thought it was a joke, but now these words made him froze. He said hurriedly, Mr. Lu, I was just joking. I know you are joking, but you can't play anymore. Sitting in this position, you have to do these things, eat with shareholders, host receptions, etc. From now on, the rotating president will take care of it. Lu Feng ordered. Liuqin laughed and whispered to Du Guoying, accompanying the CEO. Seeing his serious look, Zhu Lidong could only agree. The elevator door opened, and Lu Feng stepped out of the elevator and asked, which one comes first, the electronics conference or the internet conference? The day after tomorrow is the electronics conference, and the 20th of this month is the internet conference, Wei Yandan replied. Keep an eye on things in the Tianjin factory and treat this as the first big thing in the new year. After Lu Feng ordered, he walked into the restaurant and exchanged a few words with John. Everyone sat down to eat and chat about the present. The situation of international business. Zhuang Yuntian sat there eating silently. After listening to some useless nonsense for a long time, he stood up and left. The company has entered a new round of operation. In the last few days of 1994, GFN Electronics completely transformed from Lu Feng's company into our company, completing a qualitative change towards the international market. At night, Zhuang Yuntian became more and more angry as he thought about it. He calculated the time difference and called Eisen directly at the Goldman Sachs headquarters. Hello, who are you? Eisen leaned on his chair and drank coffee. At this moment, he had no intention of going to work, he just thought about the Christmas vacation. It's me, Zhuang Yuntian from Xiangjiang branch. Zhuang Yuntian said into the phone. Oh, what's the matter? Eisen's voice was rather perfunctory. GFN Electronics held a board meeting, and I attended it today. This company has been completely tied to the Schroders Group's chariot, Zhuang Yuntian said solemnly, it is extremely dangerous. Everyone on earth knows about this, what else is there? Eisen said indifferently. There's one more thing, it's very important. Zhuang Yuntian felt that the other party didn't take it seriously, so he simply made an explosive statement. Lu Feng, you are secretive about the R/U0026D budget, so don't blame me for telling you a number. They have increased their R/U0026D budget, especially for integrated circuits, with a budget of up to $1.5 billion. At the same time, Europe is also supporting GFN Electronics. They will set their breakthrough point in the European market next year. This must have local support. Think about it, GFN Electronics is a Chinese enterprise, but what about now? When Eisen heard this, he put down the coffee in his hand. If this is true, the international business world will undergo earth-shaking changes next year. The United States and FUZU originally competed for hegemony, but now Europe has also come to an end. They just found an agent. Just people. Okay, I understand. You can fax the relevant information and I will make a report and submit it, Eisen said solemnly. In a few days, I will collect more relevant evidence and data. Zhuang Yuntian doesn't have any evidence or data. He just wants to find a way to make something up. It is best to make the top management of Goldman Sachs Group take it seriously, or in other words, the two major forces of Silicon Valley and Wall Street take it seriously. The guests had almost given gifts. John had booked a flight ticket for tomorrow. He was quite dissatisfied with this trip. Before leaving, he told Lu Feng that as the major shareholder, he should pay more attention to it. He could not come by himself and be left alone. I couldn't see anyone in those 2 days. Lu Feng was quite upright and asked him directly whether it was more important to be busy with the company or to serve him. If serving him is important, as long as he comes here from now on, I will immediately put down everything in the company and stay with him 24 hours a day. When John heard this, he shrugged helplessly and got into the car. Now this company is too dependent on Lu Feng, and this kind of personal influence must be eliminated from the company in the future. Feng Xiao was the only one left. Lu Feng looked at him and said, "Go back early. Have you booked your tickets for tomorrow? I want to stay in the mainland for a few more days." Feng Xiao looked at Lu Feng and said, "You are busy with your business, I won't disturb you." "There is no need to disturb you, it's just that you need to have your own business." Lu Feng looked at his expression and saw that he was full of admiration. This kind of expression should not appear on the face of a young man in his 20s. If he is 17 or 18, Lu Feng understands very well. What teenager doesn't experience a man who is very important to his life? Maybe he can play basketball, maybe he can take care of others, or he may be a fierce fighter. If he has some advantages, he will be infinitely magnified and start to worship that person. But as a man matures, he will gradually get rid of all this. What is a man? Men are male animals and they need to have their own territory, their own opinions, and their own beliefs, rather than being dependent on others. The Chinese New Year is coming soon. Go back and take care of your dad. Xiao, it's time to grow up. You call me Brother Feng. You think Brother Feng is awesome. If you want to grow up, maybe Brother Feng will need your help in the future." Lu Feng said toward him. He said, "Brother Feng, just tell me what you want me to do for you." Feng Xiao asked. "You can't help me now, just book a ticket and go back tomorrow." Feng Xiao felt a little disappointed. He didn't understand why everyone was telling him to grow up quickly. He was obviously an adult already. Oh. Lu Feng could feel his unhappiness, so he patted his shoulder and said, "I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. If you have any questions, please contact Zhu Lidong. Of course, you can also call me." Oh. Seeing that he was a little upset, Lu Feng sighed softly and walked out. At night, Lu Feng tossed and turned and couldn't sleep. He sat on the sofa and lit a cigarette. The clock on the wall ticked. It was already midnight. Lu Feng was a little worried that he would lose his place with Feng Xiao in the future. He was too immature. It was like Mr. Feng spent money to build a greenhouse for him. Everything in it came according to his mood. He only experienced doing whatever he wanted. And without any setbacks. The next day, Zhuang Yuntian submitted a data report. The content was quite exaggerated, saying that Lu Feng had completely turned to Europe and received a large amount of funding, and would impact high-end manufacturing in the next few years. There is absolutely no simple business logic behind it. After Eisen got the information, he added his own understanding, sorted it out and submitted it. Domestically, another electronics conference is about to be held. The number of participating companies has expanded to 400, an increase of 135 compared to last year. On TV, the host of Shenzhen TV said to the camera, "Such a rapid increase in companies represents that my country's electronics industry is booming." The person in charge of Shenzhen Electronics Industrial Park said in an interview that the domestic electronics industry will usher in an era of high growth. Per capita electronic consumption is also gradually increasing. Among them, GFN Electronics, the city's leading enterprise, has formed a set of industrial chains unique to Shenzhen and will develop even more strongly in the future. Here are my best wishes for the 4th Electronics Conference completely completed. It's another year of electronics conference, and there are only those giants in the industry. This year, there has been basically no big action in the domestic market. The two giants Jiafeng and Changhong are advancing hand in hand, and other companies are carving up the remaining market. On the contrary, medium-sized supporting products instead, companies are reporting growth, especially in electronic panels, with many companies emerging. The biggest change this year is the reduction in cost price. The cost price of TV sets has been reduced by as much as 20%. This is the benefit of a large market. When the volume is large, even if the profit is small, we can continue to do it. Skyworth CEO Huang Hongsheng called Conkus Chen Weirong and said, "Didn't we originally say that Lu Feng would not participate? Now he is going to participate again, and I will continue to hear him curse this year. Ha 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 ha, the two of us are scolding him this year, but fortunately Zhu Lidong is not participating. I feel that guy's mouth is worse than Lu Feng." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 983. Latest website. After Lu Feng ceased to be responsible for the TV product, Zhu Lidong basically took over the whole thing. This year, many parties have been scolding, accusing, and throwing dirty water, and Zhu Lidong's eccentricity in public has also made many people in the industry it's an eye-opener for people. Being praised by others means that one is better than one's talents. Several electronic conferences, if I have to say when this conference became popular, it must be the one when Lu Feng started to participate, scolded Jiao Anfan, and angrily criticized Mr. Lu. It can be said that Lu Feng really made everyone see what he did back then. Called lack of quality. However, in the past 2 years, the organizer seems to have found the traffic password. Lu Feng must be invited every year. If he fails to be invited once, he will be invited several times. Even many business executives who came to participate for the first time privately asked what they should pay attention to when attending this conference. As a result, when everyone gathered together to eat, they said, "Remember not to provoke a young person, and the rest does not matter." Some people wonder, what is the background of such a young man who is so powerful? Everyone at the scene laughed and said that when Lu Feng from GFN Electronics scolded people, it was really like scolding his grandson. It doesn't matter what your background is, if you offend others, you will scold them. The next day, Zhu Lidong, as the rotating president, personally sent the shareholders to the airport and said goodbye one by one. Lu Feng was eating breakfast and reading the newspaper. In the morning, there was basically a preliminary conclusion regarding the corruption case headed by Zhang Quan in the Tianjin new factory area. Wei Yandan reported the specific situation. The subordinate construction company was established by Zhang Quan and was not a subsidiary of GFN because he wanted to merge into the subordinate company. Requires headquarters approval. So he thought of a way to name the company GFN Electronics Subsidiary Co., Limited, and claimed that it was a subsidiary of GFN Electronics Group. In order to obtain the right to subcontract, Zhou Quan, Director Li and others made various difficulties for the contractor during the construction period. They made things difficult for the top and hired people from below to squeeze it. In fact, 4 people were killed, 2 were seriously injured, and 16 were slightly injured. One of them died in a fight. All 4 people were compensated, each with a compensation of 30,000 yuan. Both the seriously injured and the slightly injured were compensated. During the construction of the entire factory, this group of people spent a total of 60 million on cement, steel bars, workers' wages, transportation vehicles, etc., and the subsequent workers' wages of up to 30 million are also planned to be divided through bonuses. He also disclosed some situations that Lu Feng was not aware of. GFN Electronics worked for a large company and had its own small companies outside, including human resources companies, raw material companies, and even special machine tool import companies. The specific method is that if you want to work at GFN Electronics, it is impossible to apply directly. You need to apply for a job at a human resources company in Jiangxinkai, and then be sent to GFN Electronics to pluck your hair. The same goes for the raw material company. If it wants to supply GFN Electronics, whether it is tables and chairs in the canteen, vegetables, fruits, or canopy beds in the employee dormitories, and daily consumables, they all need to go through his company's hands. As for the special airport introduction company, these people were preparing to celebrate the new year, and after the factory started operating, they found a group of people to steal GFN's machine tools and assembly lines, and then reported the huge losses to the headquarters, and then reported it to a local company. Buy this product at a price lower than the overseas import price. The entire report lasted for more than 10 pages. After reading it, Lu Feng felt numb. He raised his head and looked at Wei Yandan. Smart man, so smart. He uses all means to turn what is owned by the public into his own. This case has become a key local supervision case. Now more than 30 people have been detained. I will hold meetings starting next year. By then, the leaders of the major factories will implement a rotation system, and people will be sent out for inspections every 3 to 5 Wei Yandan solemnly said Road. At the same time, we need to increase audit inspections. How long can someone like Zhang Quan be sentenced? Lu Feng asked. That's not clear. If you find someone to find a relationship with me, you will have to be sentenced to life, do you understand? Recover the losses of the company as much as possible. Lu Feng closed the folder in his hand and ordered, this year, all business units will attend the annual meeting. Let me inform you about this incident so that we can learn from it and let everyone keep it in mind. Okay, Wei Yandan thought for a while and said, there is also a holiday. January 31st this year is New Year's Eve. Our initial holiday is to release one batch on the 20th and one batch on the 25th. The remaining people are on duty, please sign this. Don't ask me to sign for this kind of thing in the future. Go to Zuladong. This rotating president signed for me. Tomorrow is the electronics conference, right? Lu Feng asked. Right. After I attend the electronics conference, I will go to the internet conference. If I don't have anything else to do, then I will have a holiday, Lu Feng said to her. Okay, I'll ask then if there are any other things that require your participation. Are you going to visit some leaders during the Chinese New Year this year? I'm not going. If nothing happens, book some air tickets for me to Sanya and rent a villa or something there, Lu Feng casually ordered. Good. After the past few years, Lu Feng was indeed feeling tired. After Wei Yandan went out, Lu Feng stretched and prepared to go downstairs for a walk and exercise. As soon as he stood up, the phone on the table rang. He picked it up and said, who is it? Feng it's me, your mother. Lu Feng's mother's voice came from the other end of the phone. Why did you find yourself here? Lu Feng was a little surprised. I just called your company and asked for your office number. Chinese New Year is in 1 month. When will you be back? Mom asked. I may not go back this year. I want to relax and take my children for a stroll in Sanya, Lu Feng replied. Then when are you coming back? It's been a year since I came back to see you, the voice on the other end of the phone said with a bit of anticipation. I'll take some time. I'll talk when I have time. I'm fine here, how about you, the second brother? Are you out of money? Give me an account then, and I'll send you money, Lu Feng asked. On the other end of the phone, Lu Feng's parents were really shocked by money at first. They went from being poor to becoming rich overnight. However, during this time, they have slowly adapted to a wealthy life. Those who were originally poor because of money, relatives who come and go, no longer have much contact because they can't make much money. When the noise subsided and people calmed down from the excitement, the old couple still wanted to see their son, but they also knew that Lu Feng was definitely not what he used to be. He was very busy every day watching some propaganda on TV and newspapers. No money is needed. It's enough money. Your father and I can't spend it all in 2 lifetimes. We just miss you. Lu Feng felt a little uncomfortable listening to the voice on the phone. Of course he understood how his parents wanted to see their son, but he also knew that when he returned, there would be a bunch of people at home again. The most important thing is that Lu Feng doesn't know how to face this old couple, especially their love. Okay, I'll take time to go back after the Chinese New Year, Lu Feng agreed. It's okay. If you're busy, just be busy. Your mother misses you and everything is fine at home, Dad's voice came from the phone. Are you talking nonsense? Didn't you ask me to call? Okay, Stop saying a few words. The mutterings on the other end of the phone made Lu Feng feel that he owed these two old men a little, and he felt a little sad. Mom and Dad, I'm a little busy right now. I'll hang up now. You too, please take good care of your health. If you don't have any money, just talk. Just eat and drink. Don't worry, Lu Feng ordered. Then I won't disturb you, just go about your business. The other end of the phone never hung up, so Lu Feng had no choice but to put the phone down. When I went downstairs, the sun was just right outside. It was the end of the year, and I could already see people packing their things and getting ready for the holidays. Shenzhen is a city where people say that when they come, they are all Shenzhen people, but at the end of the year, you will know that you doesn't belong here. Lu Feng wandered around with nothing to do, watching everyone rushing back in large and small bags. Most of them couldn't afford a taxi and could only go to the station by motorcycle. Over the decades, people have come and gone in the city, leaving behind their footsteps in a hurry. I don't know how many people once longed to stay among the high-rise buildings. In the end, most people returned to the countryside. Most of the people Lu Feng saw were young people, some of whom were even childish. At an intersection, Lu Feng was smoking a cigarette. He looked at several young people in their late teens, who were also smoking. Look at Lu Feng. They envied Lu Feng and secretly thought that they could be like him in the city many years later. Lu Feng looked at them and understood in his heart that the so-called success was nothing more than a group of people looking for gold on the ground. Some people end up where they came from. After walking around the company, Lu Feng didn't find the so-called New Year flavor, so he simply drove out. After a long stroll, he discovered one thing. The more prosperous and high-end places, the less the New Year flavor. The more small alleys, the grocery stalls are getting busier. The poor are busy looking forward to the coming year, but the rich are too busy to have time. In the evening, Lu Feng parked his car in front of a small restaurant. It was crowded. He ordered 2 dishes and sat down. Next to him was a large family, old and young, all looking very happy. From what I could tell from the chat, it was probably the middle-aged man who had picked up all the family members. The children's faces were full of excitement and they kept looking around. Just cook at home, restaurants are too expensive, the old man complained. It's okay, this big city has such consumption, the man praised Haikao. Lu Feng was eating and listening to their conversation, and sometimes he laughed unconsciously. In fact, not only now, but also before his rebirth, Lu Feng felt that celebrating the new year was boring, as if it lacked the flavor of the new year. As for what the flavor of the year is, Lu Feng doesn't know. He can't explain the feeling he had when he was a child. Now he seems to understand a little bit. The flavor of the year is like being a family, meeting the people you miss the most, eating your favorite food, and wearing what you want to wear the most. The taste of the new year is unbridled. But when you are acting wildly for 365 days a year, there is no sense of the new year, and all you can think about is facing questioning from relatives. Tell yourself the embarrassment of being tortured by life alone. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 984. Latest website. The electronics conference is being promoted. CEOs of electronics companies from all over the country have rushed to Shenzhen. At the same time, the Internet conference is also under intense preparation. In comparison, Shenzhen is the organizer of the electronics conference, but no city across the country is willing to host an Internet conference. Originally, a group of people came up with an Internet concept and found a place to brag about it, if Lu Feng hadn't joined the conference. It is estimated that it really can't be held. It was recently decided to hold it in Shanghai. They only raised less than 200,000 yuan in startup funds. After Lu Feng heard about this situation, he donated 300,000 yuan to give them a whole fund. 99% of people in China now don't know what the internet is or what it can do. So in the late 1990s, when websites appeared rapidly, and then went public to speculate on the concept, no one could find a way to make a profit, and even some people, to put it simply and crudely, the internet is a pyramid scheme. It was not until Sohu announced its profits in 2002 that Pandora's box of the internet was opened. Lu Feng pays attention to the internet not because he wants to invest in someone now, but because he wants to get into this industry. If he meets an acquaintance, he might be able to pat him on the shoulder and say, "Xioma, pick up your cup. Make a toast, show off your talent, and talk to me if you need anything from now on. I will protect you." This feeling is still very exciting. At 9 o'clock in the morning, people were arriving outside the venue of the electronics conference one after another. They were greeting each other and some were standing at the door to be interviewed by reporters. 7 or 8 people, Huang Hongsheng and Chen Weirong, stood together and chatted. They were just talking about some market conditions next year, things in the industry, and sometimes gossip. Colleagues are sometimes enemies and sometimes partners, which ultimately determines the certain interests of the relationship. Judging from the current situation, the market growth next year will not be large. Now the annual sales volume has exceeded 30 million units. Where can it continue to grow? So we have to develop in a diversified way, and we can't just rely on a TV. Look at GFN, people have pagers, and in a few years they may have mobile phones. Everyone felt a little embarrassed when they heard this. If this continues, the distance between companies will become wider and wider. The market is like this. If the leader does not engage in research and development, but resells it in new ways and pursues profit maximization, then the second and third tier brands below will have an easy life. If GFN Electronics does this, I am afraid it will not last long. In the year, these companies were eliminated by GFN. It's impossible to be stress-free. This year, less than half of the people came to attend the conference for the first time. Standing at the door and looking at the venue that can accommodate 500 people, they felt quite excited. They don't know the people around them, but what these bosses are best at is socializing. Those who arrived 2 days in advance have already met many people through the social attribute of fellow villagers. Who is the boss of GFN Electronics? A man in his 30s looked around for a long time and finally asked the people around him. "You haven't come yet. Besides, it's not like you haven't read about Lu Feng in the newspaper. I just heard that he curses people here every year. Isn't this just out of curiosity? Ha 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 ha, let him scold you today." The man was not afraid at all and said excitedly, "Then I will become popular. I don't know how many media outlets will interview me then. I can take the opportunity to promote my company. It would be best if he and I quarrel with each other in the media for a year and a half carried. Oh my, you finally understand this propaganda thing. Everyone is as big as brown sugar. Let's introduce people who know each other. Maybe there is some cooperation. This occasion is definitely a good place for business communication." At 9:10, Lu Feng's car stopped at the back door. The door opened and he went directly into the backstage of the venue. Vice Mayor Lu and the others were almost there. "Mr. Lu is here." Vice Mayor Lu saw Lu Feng smiling, stood up and stretched out his hand to Lu Feng. Such a big meeting would never be possible without Mr. Lu and GFN Electronics. "I didn't expect that Deputy Mayor Lu would be in charge this year. Knowing that it was you, I didn't refuse the first time. I had to give you face no matter what, mainly because I was too busy this year," Lu Feng said with a smile. "Forgive me." Vice Mayor Lu said he understood, but he was thinking in his heart, "I called you, but I couldn't even find anyone." There were many people from the municipal government backstage, and after being polite for a long time, the opening ceremony had begun outside. A hostess came in and said, "It's about to officially open. All leaders, please take your seats." Everyone stood up and walked outside. Accompanied by applause, a few people stepped out and waved to everyone. It can be said that this treatment is already very high. After taking their seats, a series of opening remarks began, and everyone behind them glanced at Lu Feng's so-called position. In this situation, is he swearing? Isn't it appropriate? Are the past things true or false? No one cares about your occasion, just be quiet and watch the excitement. Compared with last year, this year, there is an additional award ceremony, such as Innovation Award, Progress Award, and a lot of mess. At 10:30, Vice Mayor Lu finished his speech. The host picked up the microphone and said, "I believe that everyone will participate in the electronics conference. It will be more what I want to hear is the opinions of the big guys in the industry on the development of the industry, which can point out the direction for everyone. This is also the most worthwhile exchange point of our conference. So next, please invite Huang Hongshen, Chairman of Skyworth, Chen Weirong, Chairman of Conca, Mr. Lu Feng, CEO and Executive President of GFN Electronics Group." Everyone was quite surprised when they heard that Lu Feng had changed his name. Huang Hongshen came to the stage and sat down, took the microphone and said, "Mr. Lu has become an official, but we are still the chairman. It's not easy to be an official. You have to turn your things into everyone's and just give me a false position." Lu Feng sat down and looked at these old opponents on the stage and asked, "How have you been doing this year?" Several people looked ugly. Chen Weirong said to Lu Feng, "Thanks to Mr. Lu, I can barely survive, but everyone is the same. This is the world. You deal with us, and there are people outside who deal with you, and they deal with you much more harshly than us." As soon as these words came out, everyone on the stage smiled. They had been tricked by Lu Feng in Huiran and got so much goods and money. After all, they couldn't compare to the losses suffered by GFN Electronics when they were dealt with overseas. When we think of this, everyone feels very comfortable. Lu Feng smiled and said, "Being in a good mood is better than anything else. There is a saying that there are people who are jealous behind the scenes of a capable person." Seeing the tension and cynicism on the stage, the people below who were attending for the first time were a little excited. Are we about to start? Will there be a fight? It doesn't feel that intense anyway. Huang Hongshen and others felt that bickering was inevitable. Anyway, GFN was now developing so big that these companies would benefit from the quarrel with them. It seemed that these companies were standing at the same level as GFN. Lu Feng was already tired of this kind of tricks, and it was pointless to start arguing now. GFN did not lack the attention now, and it was past the time for him to step aside. A lot of things have happened to GFN Electronics overseas this year. What does Mr. Lu have to say? Seeing that Lu Feng was silent, the host took the initiative to pick a fight. This year has changed GFN a lot, and it has changed me even more. I have seen a bigger world and stronger opponents. I have always felt that I need to have a broad vision and see the whole world instead of fighting among myself. GFN has changed a lot this year. Feng Electronics is paving the way for all the companies here, and I believe that one day, domestic companies will be able to go global. There are many ways to go out. One is to go out with a straight waist, and the other is to go out on your knees. I will resist all the injustices GFN is suffering now, not because of a company, but if they give in, they will think that our country's companies are weak and will be bullied if they go out. Everyone present, look at me and I look at you. This doesn't seem to be what Lu Feng should say. So, GFN Electronics has raised us $3.5 billion. Now it looks down on companies like Skyworth, Conca, and TCL. After all, you are an international company. The host continued to stir up trouble. I don't have such thoughts. If I used to say that, I might fight with them like crazy. When I fly into the sky one day, I will definitely stand in front of them and show off my success. Now I don't have such thoughts at all. What I'm thinking more about is how we can lead everyone to go out. Whether it's Skyworth or Conca, I hope to set an example for them. Only by going out can you feel how stupid it is to fight in a nest. GFN is willing to be the first one to rush out and suffer the hardest fight, suffer the greatest injustice, and have the courage to fight. When everyone walks out, I hope it will be a smooth road. This. Not to mention Huang Hongsheng and others, everyone at the scene was a little dumbfounded. Why were they still a little moved? Actually, when you see the bigger world, you will realize that the bumps in front of you are just small ravines, and what is in front of you is an insurmountable mountain. Even so, Jiafeng still has to rush upward, because there is no retreat. Our country needs to move forward. Every Chinese citizen desires a better life. They can target GFN, embarrass GFN, and even seize products and freeze funds, but they can't stop our motivation to pursue a better life. I believe that even if GFN collapses tomorrow, another company will try to get out of the door. And straighten your spine and go him. But to work with others, you have to be strong, so I am here to call on all major companies to increase research and development. What is the new technology? It is the sharpest blade. Although there is a gap, we must catch up instead of making mistakes. Some superficial things, one day, when we look around the world, no one will dare to embarrass us anymore, and everyone will unconditionally believe in us, just because of the quality of our products. The scene was very quiet, everyone stared at each other, and one of them whispered, he stopped swearing? Why do you feel that your thoughts and moral character have improved? Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 985. Latest website. The biggest attraction of the original electronics conference seemed to have become an education conference this time. Lu Feng's words were particularly sincere and could be regarded as instructive. Even a few people on the stage felt that he had changed, he was no longer so sharp, and he seemed so aloof when faced with any provocation. In the past, even if he didn't curse, he would probably be sarcastic. Whether it is an international company or a local company, in the final analysis, you still have to come up with a set of things to face the market. Just relying on deception will not work. It will not work. You can deceive for a while, but you will never be able to deceive for the rest of your life. So I sincerely propose here that everyone should work hard on research and development. Lu Feng said to everyone with sincerity, from the 1980s to now, TVs at that time were absolutely rare. In more than 10 years, earth-shaking changes have taken place. Who can marry a wife without buying a TV? I believe all of you here are rich bosses, so you should all have been abroad, right? What is the standard of living in developed countries? What is their consumption power? We can't just focus on the money in front of us. One day we will also become a developed country. With such a large consumption power, how much money do you think your company can make every year? When you rise to a certain level, you should dance with the nation and bring glory to the country. Don't think about making the money in front of you. What I always want to say is that if you only focus on the money in front of you for 3 to 5 years, then you are a poor person, poor in thinking and vision. The host saw that Lu Feng opened his mouth about the world and shut up about the country. The topic was a bit big. He hurriedly pulled it back and said, small businesses have ways to survive. I actually want to ask Mr. Huang and Mr. Chen, Skyworth, how can companies like TCL and Konka defeat GFN? Huang Hongsheng picked up the microphone and smiled and said, I think that in the field of home appliances, the next 5 years will be an important competition time, a seesaw time, and we will win. Lu Feng shook his head after hearing this. Individual victory or the victory of a private enterprise means nothing to me. If our country can win, it will be of great significance. Let me tell you this, I have no concept of money anymore. Apart from supporting enterprises, apart from development, it is of no use to me. Profound was written all over Lu Feng's face. He looked around the scene and said, "What does GFN mean? GFN doesn't even count. The goal of a company in the next 3 to 5 years is just to kill GFN. I can only say that there is no future. GFN's mission is to help more domestic companies grow and even go abroad. Even if you succeed in the end and GFN disappears, then I feel that my life is very meaningful." Several people on the stage stopped talking. No matter what they said, Lu Feng taught them at a higher level. There was no way to talk. This feeling was like going home and telling your dad that you have no money. His dad told him, life is very long. If you live to your father's age, you will know that the obstacles in front of you are not obstacles. 72 or 84 are called obstacles. GFN's next mission is to charge for everyone and fight the most difficult battle. When integrated circuits can be designed and produced domestically, then I believe everyone present will benefit. This year GFN has also been favored by many industries. I don't understand. I have nothing to say. I just want to work on my own business, Lu Feng said to everyone. The biggest fear in manufacturing is to make quick money. If you always want to come in and make a profit, you will die undoubtedly. Lu Feng has really changed. He has begun to have a bit of the temperament of a business godfather, as if he has made a break with his past self. After dinner at noon, many CEOs who had just entered the industry were invited to ask questions to the people on the stage in the afternoon. Today's opening was completed, and there will be various exchange meetings tomorrow. Lu Feng will not participate in the subsequent exchange meetings. Gone back. The group headquarters is proceeding in an orderly manner. The great advantage of the company is that if the boss does not carry out some pioneering business, there is basically nothing to do at the group headquarters. All major projects were followed up by departments, but Lu Feng was free. He called Zhang Xiaoyan every day for 2 or 3 days to chat and ask when he would have a holiday. That teacher Duo told me several times that her mother was wronged. Every time she went there, she would pester me, cry and make noises. When Duo came back, she also told me that the teacher's family was wronged and asked you to help her. Handle Zhang Xiaoyan was a little confused. Help? She doesn't know what her mother is like. Good guy, you are doing whatever you want in my name. I'll go there immediately. I won't go there until after the new year. She will probably be the director of the factory. Tell her, don't harass the children, otherwise don't blame me for being rude. Lu Feng was a little angry. If it doesn't work, let Duo transfer to another school, Zhang Xiaoyan said helplessly. Transferring to another school? The child still has to adapt to the new classmates. Okay, don't worry about it. We have money and we don't bully others. Don't worry about it. I'll make a call. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he hung up the phone. He was so busy these 2 days that he forgot about this problem. Lu Feng called the call center and asked them to be transferred to the principal's office of Duo School. Hey. Who is it? A man's voice came from the other end of the phone. Hello, I am the parent of Lu Duo, a student in class 6, grade 2. You are the principal, right? Lu Feng asked. Yes, what's wrong? You are Mr. Lu from GFN, right? Asked the other end of the phone. Yes, I just want to respond. Regarding Duo's current class teachers' affairs, the school should be relatively simple and should not get involved in so many things. Lu Feng briefly explained the matter and asked, what I mean is that this teacher should be fired. Is that so? It really shouldn't be, but the school also has rules. By the way, Mr. Lu, the children's conditions are very difficult, and they still lack a library, the principal mentioned. What kind of library does a primary school need? Lu Feng was already a little annoyed. It is indeed necessary. In that case, Let's discuss the Duo class teachers matter at a meeting. That's it for now. I have something else to do, so I'll hang up first, the other party said and hung up the phone. Lu Feng took a deep breath. He really thought he was being ripped off and could knock anyone he wanted. I directly pressed the number of Deputy Mayor Lu and briefly explained the matter. The next day, the principal was no longer the original principal. On the first day of the new principal's arrival, he fired Duo's class teacher. The next few days were filled with trivial matters. I went to Zhang Xiaoyan's residence several times and determined the time to travel to Sanya. Zhang Fengxia also decided to follow. The internet conference is in full swing. In order to attract more people's attention, the organizers always say in external publicity that Mr. Lu Feng, the boss of GFN Electronics, will attend. The outside world doesn't know much about the internet, and more people jokingly call this so-called conference a fraud meeting, and Lu Feng is the leader of the fraud world. Due to Lu Feng's attendance, people who didn't know what the internet was originally crowded in to attend, just because they wanted to have a chance to get in touch with Lu Feng. The organizer didn't expect Lu Feng to be so valuable, so they simply started selling tickets and sold more than 1 million in a short time. 10 days later, in Shanghai, the door of a 5-star hotel was already crowded with people. A banner hung at the door, which read warm congratulations on the complete success of the first internet conference. Everyone was asking if Lu Feng was here. In order to seize a chance to squeeze out Lu Feng, they all crowded at the door. There were relatively few people in the venue, and there was a thin young man sitting there. 4 or 5 people gathered nearby and chatted. The internet in China is basically a barren land now, and conferences like this are purely a lie, a man in his 30s said. They are all here to see Mr. Lu. It's true. I just heard a few people over there say that the internet is for fishing. Ha 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 ha. Everyone couldn't help laughing. One of them looked at the thin man and asked, "What are you doing now?" "Open an internet company. I have a career. I am now the person in charge of MIT in China, and I am also the representative of ISI in China," the man said. Everyone nodded, but they didn't seem to understand. Another person asked, "What is ISI?" It can be understood as a scientific citation engine, which is based on the internet and shares scientific papers. It has the functions of uploading, searching, and downloading, the man explained. A few of them understood it somewhat, but the rest still had only a vague understanding. "What's your last name?" "The surname is Zhang," the man introduced, "Zhang Chaoyang." Lu Feng's car had already stopped at the door. There were too many people in it. Before they even got off the car, some people began to introduce themselves. It seemed that they had met Lu Feng and embarked on the road to wealth. The driver had no choice but to drive the car to the back door. The person in charge was a chubby man in his 40s, wearing round glasses and looking very festive. I'm really sorry, Mr. Lu. Now everyone is very enthusiastic about you." He opened the car door for Lu Feng and said at the same time, "Your coming is really the greatest support for the domestic internet. I don't understand the internet, but I heard that you are selling tickets like crazy." Lu Feng glanced at him and walked inside. "This is also to raise money, and I would like to thank you very much for your funding. You are a great philanthropist." The person in charge caught up and said, "We are going to give you an award for China's Internet Guide today." "Need not." Lu Feng coldly refused. He came here just to see who would be there. However, Lu Feng searched in his mind. The one in Hangzhou should be working in a translation agency now, and the one in Shenzhen should have just walked out of campus. As for other people, I haven't thought of it yet. After an hour, everyone was finally seated. The host came on stage and sputtered a bunch of nonsense. Then the organizer of the conference came on stage to speak. Because no city was willing to endorse it, there was no leader present. Now, let us give warm applause to welcome Mr. Lu Feng, CEO of GFN Electronics Group. There was a round of applause, and some people even shouted below about the project they were working on, hoping that Lu Feng would invest. It was as chaotic as a wet market. Lu Feng stepped onto the stage and looked at the crowd of people below. There were probably thousands of people. After scanning for a full minute, he suddenly gained something. Hey, catch one. It's him. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 986. Latest website. If you think about it carefully, he is probably the only one who can pay attention to the internet now. Several experts came to the stage. They all looked to be in their 50s or 60s, and they seemed to be standing tall as they sat there. But Lu Feng could tell that these people probably didn't even know what the internet was. Next, let us warmly welcome with grand applause, Mr. Chang Longji, President of the Global Internet Society, will give you a few words. There was a round of applause, and there were many who took the lead in cheering. The chairman Chang picked up the microphone and said, "Well, this internet, I believe everyone present knows, it is the internet, invented by the United States, it is high technology, our country is in high technology. Although we are lagging behind in the field, we still need to catch up. People like Mr. Lu can support the internet, which shows that the internet will play a decisive role in the future development." The following people are applauding wildly. Some of these people want to use the internet to make money, while others want to come up with a concept and go public to make money. As for the person who really understands what the internet is, Mr. Zhang is probably the only one. Several experts at the scene spoke one after another, and their words were very vague. In a simple summary, the internet is awesome. As for what the internet is, what role it can play, and what its future is, how well do they write on these three issues? It's a must. Wow. That's a great answer. I believe everyone knows the internet very well now. Indeed, the future is the world of the internet, so now is the best time to invest in the internet, especially the industries that Mr. Lu is optimistic about. The future will be unlimited. The host looked at Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, please give me a few words." Many people in the audience heard that it had investment properties, and their eyes began to light up, and some of them who had a little knowledge of the internet were a little impatient. Zhang Qiaoyang frowned slightly as he looked at the enthusiastic expressions of the people around him. Seeing his expression, the people next to him asked in a low voice, "What's wrong?" "Based on the analysis just now about the internet, how do you feel?" Zhang Qiaoyang asked. "It's specious, it's a bit confusing, but what level can this kind of conference reach? Just join in the fun. The key is that with a figure like Lu Feng, I thought he must have a different understanding of world trends because he is so rich. Now it seems that he is just a fool," Zhang Qiaoyang muttered. "Do you really think all rich people are smart? Just look at what he looks like. Besides, brother, you have a PhD degree from MIT. What about him? He graduated from elementary school. How many ways did you throw him away? Forget it, I won't listen anymore and leave." "Wait a minute, let's go together." When Lu Feng heard that they wanted to attract investment, he understood in his heart that his relationship was an endorsement of himself, and holding such a meeting would be a fool. This routine was played by Lu Feng before, but he still fell into it. Lu Feng picked up the microphone, with a somewhat unsightly expression on his face, and said, "I'm here to attend this meeting. It has nothing to do with investment. The domestic internet does not have the capacity for investment attributes, not even speculation. The domestic internet is still in its infancy. Even the foreign internet is mostly concepts. Now it is mainly email, BBS, the so-called bulletin board, and another one is ICQ. Communicate online. These things are only internet applications, not commercial. I think the internet will not be profitable in China within 5 years. From offline to online, it is a huge span and requires a big change. Everyone must be vigilant in the past few years. Those who use the internet to attract investment are 100% scammers. When Lu Feng said this, there was an uproar on the scene, and the organizer was dumbfounded. He was called here because he wanted Lu Feng to talk about the investment attributes of the internet. Unexpectedly, Lu Feng actually said that. "Boss, what should we do?" A woman in her 30s ran over and asked the fat person in charge. "I told people that the internet has low risks and high returns." The fat person in charge was already sweating on his forehead and said hurriedly, "Go and talk to Mr. Lu and tell him to stop talking." The female host came over and whispered to Lu Feng, "Mr. Lu, we hope you can say more about whether the internet can be invested in, thank you." "Thank me for what? Why can the internet be invested in now?" Lu Feng stared at the female host with a microphone in his hand and asked. Everyone on the scene stared at the stage, and there was silence. Everyone, hello, hello. Lu Feng found that his microphone had been pinched, and looked backstage. The fat person in charge came out with a smile on his face, greeted everyone with a smile, and said something with a small problem. He hurried to Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, let's talk later." "What are you talking about? Are you talking about how to lie to people? What I hate most in my life are liars." "Now turn on my microphone," Lu Feng shouted. "Let's go down and talk. I'll give you one last chance, otherwise you might not be able to leave Shanghai. Although I don't know anyone here, I tell you, I can get you with just one phone call," Lu Feng said solemnly. Road. Many people in the audience had already stood up and looked at the stage. Zhang Chaoyang and others were about to leave, but suddenly they felt that Lu Feng seemed to be a good person, and he still had some level of ability. What happened? What's going on with the organizer? The fat person in charge looked at Lu Feng and couldn't twist his thigh with his arms. The key was that he lured Lu Feng here in the hope of forcing him to submit. Isn't this asking for trouble? The fat person in charge apologized profusely and had no choice but to turn on the microphone. "I went on to say that as the domestic internet is connected to the world internet, it will be a huge market for the world. I have also heard that many overseas elites have come back to do this. My view on the internet is that it is mostly about concepts. When there is a new thing, it is just a concept in the first wave. A group of people are crazy about this concept, attract investment, and eventually go bankrupt. In the US internet industry, I believe everyone has seen this happen. Regarding the future of the internet, I still have a wait-and-see attitude in the short term. In the long term, it will definitely change the world. So for those who are interested in domestic internet development for people, I propose several directions. First, search engines. Second, public communication platforms. Third, online independent communication platforms. And fourth, online shopping. Search engines are information sharing. The biggest advantage of the internet is zero-cost communication. As long as your website can monopolize information resources, then you will be the overlord of search engines. The public communication platform is BBS. You can publish information, discuss information, and then publish the message to form a closed loop of the platform. The platform for independent online communication is ICQ. The public platform has the nature of exposure, so it requires one-on-one communication or communication in a small circle. Online shopping is not expected to be formed in the short term and requires strong infrastructure. However, there are people overseas who are trying this on the internet. These directions are full of difficulties, but as long as you can do it, the richest man in the future will be. There's definitely a place for you. Everyone in the audience was already numb. Most people didn't know what he was talking about, but Zhang Chaoyang knew. He said that as the head of ISI China, he wanted to put academic things on the internet to achieve global academic sharing. The goal. It can be said that doing search engines is his old profession. The people next to him had begun to get excited. Zhang Chaoyang was a little puzzled and asked, "Why are you so excited?" Didn't you hear that Mr. Lu said that as long as he does it well, he will definitely be the richest man in the future? In the next 10 years, I will do nothing but the internet, the man said excitedly. Zhang Xiaoyang was a little shocked when he saw the man on the stage talking non-stop. Many people wanted to explain the internet, but they couldn't understand it, but the man on the stage explained it clearly easily. People nowadays don't have the slightest idea about the internet. What does it look like, how does it work, and how can it be searched? How to search? Where to search? Have absolutely no idea what it is. But he felt that Lu Feng on the stage seemed to have a good idea, as if he had seen it before. It is also a tukang. Northerners who have seen it describe it in completely different ways than Southerners who have never seen it, because Northerners have really seen it. Lu Feng's description of the development of the internet shocked him, especially what was inadvertently revealed about search engines, which made him feel incredible. For almost 2 hours, Lu Feng kept talking. Sometimes things would come out of his mouth, such as express delivery, takeout, online payment, etc., and they would all pass by. It was these things that were revealed inadvertently that made Zhang Xiaoyang begin to doubt. Could this guy have traveled back through time and space? After all, the movie Terminator is so deeply rooted in people's hearts. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he put down the microphone, stood up and left. It was not suitable for him to stay in such an occasion for too long. Lu Feng stood up and glanced towards the stage, looking at him. Realizing that he was staring straight at him, Lu Feng was stunned for a moment. He didn't even dare to look at him, so he smiled at him and walked towards the audience. Zhang Xiaoyang stood up and hurriedly walked out. He had to ask. When he was at MIT, he once argued with many people about the topic of time travel to discuss whether the Terminator could really be realized in the future. Backstage, Lu Feng took a break and drank some water. A skinny man came in. When he saw Lu Feng, he shouted, "Mr. Lu, can I talk to you?" "Who let you in?" "Get out." The security guard hurriedly stepped forward to stop him, and was about to kick him out. When Lu Feng saw it was him, he hurriedly said, "Let me come in. I just have a few minutes. Do you have anything to ask?" Zhang Xiaoyang walked in, stared at Lu Feng for a few seconds, and asked, "Can you answer me truthfully?" Lu Feng couldn't help laughing and said, "But it doesn't matter. Are you from the future?" Lu Feng's heart was shocked, as if he had been hit by a hammer. He was stunned on the spot. This was the first time he was asked this question. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 987. Latest website. Lu Feng froze for more than 10 seconds. That moment was so long. When he came back to his senses, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "Thank you for your high opinion of me. Is there anything else you want to ask?" He saw that Lu Feng was silent. For a moment, he could feel that the man in front of him seemed to have been told something, but the words he said were accurate. If he was right, he should have refuted it vigorously or just stopped talking. However, Lu Feng's answer completely extended his words to praise. "I want to ask, is the development of the internet really that big? The future is certain, but the process of getting there is more tortuous. Don't question the development level of an emerging industry. Just participate in it. From the look of you, are you ready to invest in this area?" Lu Feng stared at him and asked. "Road." Zhang Xiaoyang nodded and briefly introduced his academic qualifications and vision for the future. "I think it's feasible. Search engines are the foundation of the internet and the beginning of everyone's understanding of the internet. It's not difficult to get started. The main thing is the accumulation of original data. Work hard. If you need investment, you can contact me." Lu Feng took something from his pocket. She handed him a business card and said, "This is my office phone number." Zhang Xiaoyang stared at the business card in his hand, and a smile appeared on his face unconsciously. Maybe he really should do something. It was already late December, and even the weather in Shanghai was starting to get colder. Lu Feng was sitting in the back seat of the car with a somewhat unpleasant look on his face. He recalled his reaction at that moment, which was so scary. What would happen if someone knew they were from the future? Lu Feng didn't dare to think about it. It would be a reversal of the global structure. At Lu Feng, he could only make some money relying on these unpredictable things. If people at a higher level knew about it, Lu Feng would become a strategic material. That's right, it's supplies. It will be more threatening than nuclear weapons. Such a strategic material will become a thorn in the eyes and flesh of global powers. Thinking of this, Lu Feng's shirt inside became soaked. He recalled that he had developed along the way and was able to turn danger into safety every time, and he could accurately step on the nodes of policy, era, and industry every time. In addition, he was originally a bastard who had not graduated from junior high school. These things could not be investigated by some special units of the country. In the past, Lu Feng had heard that the country had an abnormal human research center. He didn't know if it was true. Now Lu Feng felt that he was very likely to get a job where he would be studied by others. I felt guilty about this matter, and the more I thought about it, the more scared I became, and I was completely panicked. No, you can't show yourself anymore, you have to hide yourself, Lu Feng muttered. After the plane landed, Lu Feng returned to the company as soon as possible and convened a board meeting by phone. He made it clear on the phone that from now on, he would no longer hold any position within the board of directors, and would no longer hold any official position on the board of directors. You can hold any position in Feng Electronics Group, but you can still work for the company. The entire board of directors was stunned. They didn't know what happened. Why did Lu Feng suddenly give up? During the phone call, Lu Feng said that his shareholdings would be held by others and that he would no longer appear in public. At the same time, he did not want the outside world to report on him. Apart from this, everything else was the same and he hoped that the board of directors would approve it. John asked several times, but Lu Feng couldn't give an answer. Except for Sun Hongkai, which agreed, all other shareholders put the matter on hold and said they would wait until after the new year. I can't tell you specific things, but I need to do this now. You can rest assured that I will do a good job in the European market next year, Lu Feng said into the phone. This is too sudden. Really, I feel like you are leaving this company. We need time. John was not sure what Lu Feng was doing. He thought there were some internal policy changes in China that made him so scared. If there were no problems, Lu Feng would be so happy to act like he had left Jiafeng. Okay, I'll give you time, Lu Feng said towards the phone. I hope there will be an answer after the year. Definitely, I wish you good luck in the year of the pig. Lu Feng hung up the phone and let out a long sigh of relief as he sat down. He had been doing this for so long, no less than a month or two. There shouldn't be anyone watching me, right? Lu Feng said a little suspiciously. When the senior management of the group learned that Lu Feng was about to retreat, the entire senior management was stunned. There was a knock on the office door. Lu Feng straightened his clothes, raised his head and said, "Come in." The office door was pushed open, and Wei Yandan, Zhu Lidong, Du Guoying, and Liukan all squeezed in, staring at Lu Feng with confusion in their eyes. If Lu Feng leaves Jiafeng and the company develops within 1 or 2 years, these people will definitely be fine, but what about 5 years later? 10 years from now? They have no idea. If you can't move forward, then face death. Mr. Lu, you went to an internet conference. Why have you changed so much when you came back? Wei Yandan asked in a low voice. Why don't you want to do it anymore? You told me a few days ago that you want to be a great company. It's only been a few days. Is it possible that you want to go to the internet to continue to be great? Zhu Lidong wondered. Liukan looked at Lu Feng longingly. Although he said nothing, He could feel his confusion. If Lu Feng left, the backbone of the entire group would be gone. If foreign capital comes in, the corporate philosophy, management methods, and development direction will be completely different. It can be said that these people are 100% suitable for Lu Feng. Only when both parties work together can they exert their greatest strength. No, after all this time, I suddenly felt that I was too high profile. Lu Feng frowned and thought for a while, then said, I went to attend an internet conference. I looked like a celebrity, and people gathered around me in front of and behind the car. I am so angry that I am really not good. There is an old saying that people who are crazy must be punished, so I just want to keep a low profile. But you are so dazzling, no one will allow you to keep a low profile. Zhu Lidong sat opposite and said to Liukan next to him, not to mention you are so handsome, what do you think? Flattery, Liukan said angrily. Okay, don't worry, everyone, except for positions and equity holdings, nothing else will change, Lu Feng reassured everyone. Then what kind of position will you take? Who will handle the future affairs? Wei Yandan wondered, isn't this because the top decision maker is gone? I can hold any position, captain of the security team, foreman of the cleaning department, it doesn't matter. The highest decision-making direction should be the rotating president. This is also the original intention of establishing this position. The company must slowly become self-operating. But you can't live without me, Lu Feng said to everyone, do you understand? Everyone nodded with embarrassment, muttering in their hearts that no one would dare to mess with the cleaning and security guards in the future. Okay, I've basically finished all my things. I'll give myself a day off tomorrow. I also wish you a happy new year in advance. I'll send you a red envelope. Lu Feng opened the drawer and took out a stack of red envelopes. I was stunned and forgot to put money in it. Everyone has stood up and gone to the desk to receive a red envelope and leave. Lu Feng coughed awkwardly, took out the red envelope and handed it over and said, give everyone a red envelope and put some money in it yourself. Happy New Year. One person took a red envelope and walked out. Du Guoying muttered in a low voice, this is too stingy. Stop talking nonsense and let's go, Zhu Lidong kicked him lightly. At around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, with the sun setting dimly, Lu Feng simply packed up his things, called Zhang Xiaoyan, and went to pick up Duoduo first, as Duoduo was on winter vacation today. Driving to the school gate, a large group of children were rushing out. Parents and children blocked the street. When the security guard saw Lu Feng, he hurriedly shouted, Mr. Lu, Duoduo is in the principal's reception room. Lu Feng went to the principal's reception room. The principal was a man in his 30s. He held Lu Feng's hand with both hands. He invited Lu Feng to dinner and said that he would arrange Duoduo into the best class next year. Go inside. Thank you, principal. This kid is a little naughty. You don't need to take special care of him. Just tell the teacher to whip him when it's time to whip him, Lu Feng ordered. How could it be? Such a good child, besides, children are just innocent and don't understand anything. The principal smiled very cautiously. As soon as he finished speaking, a woman in her 30s walked in with her child, and said, are you Principal Wang? This child was deceived, and all the pocket money he gave him was deceived by the children in his class. It's not a small amount of money, it's a full 10 yuan. I'm not deceived. I'll be connected to the internet soon. Don't delay my connection. The child's face was full of reluctance and he kept making trouble. What network? What network is so valuable? Tell me, who? Who took your money? Our family's money used to be blown by the wind, the woman scolded. Lu Feng stood there and looked at the child, then at Duoduo, and had an intuition in his heart. As expected, the boy raised his finger and pointed at Duoduo and said, Duoduo said you would get me a net. Is this your child? This is Duoduo again. The woman's voice was particularly sharp. Lu Feng's face turned gloomy, he stared at Duo and shouted, "You go home and wait for the solace of your shoes." She finally refunded all the children's money, more than 500 yuan in total, but she didn't spend the money arbitrarily, and basically all 500 yuan was there. Back in the car, Lu Feng stared at her and wondered, "How do you know about the internet?" "I watched it on TV, and you also attended the internet conference," Duo muttered quietly. "Then why are you defrauding people of their money? What's wrong with this? How many times have you said this, and it can't be changed, right? For people like you, growing up will never be the end of it, do you understand?" Lu Feng shouted at her. This time I was really annoyed. This child was taught a wrong way. I didn't lie to them. I told them that I could connect their heads to a network. The network is very magical, but how many people would it take to connect it? I didn't spend any money. The money was reserved for other things. I told them that as long as they buy my snacks and have a good relationship with me, I will give them priority to connect to the internet, and I will use their money to buy snacks and sell them to them, Duo said with annoyance while sitting in the passenger seat. "They still have money to buy your snacks?" Lu Feng asked in surprise. "If you don't have money, just deduct it from the 10 yuan connection fee." Lu Feng rubbed his face with his hands. This thing was about to become a sperm. He couldn't help but said, "You use a concept to fool people into investing money in it, so that these people will flatter you and buy the high price you bought with their money snacks. You wait until you get slapped on the bottom of your shoe." Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 988. Latest website. Lu Feng had never seen such a ghostly child. He didn't know what he was thinking about all day long. Now Duo is considered a big girl. She has grown taller and has 2 ponytails. She sits on the co-pilot, didn't say a word. "Did you take the exam?" Lu Feng looked at her and asked. "Took the exam, ranked 5th in the class and 30th in age." Duo pouted and turned over the papers from his school bag. Her school bag was a mess, with all kinds of snacks, account books, homework, and toys. Lu Feng's scalp went numb just looking at it. The little girl needs to be clean. "Now that you have grown up, which boy will like you?" Lu Feng said with hatred. "You clean up." "Why should I clean it up? I'm in the class and there is someone to clean it up for me. Besides, I don't need others to like me. I can just spend money on whatever I like," Duo said indifferently. "Is there someone special to pack your school bag?" Lu Feng was completely shocked. Wasn't his daughter too good at school? Duo glanced at Lu Feng and said nothing more. It felt like he was asking less about things in the world. He took out a crumpled paper and handed it to Lu Feng. "Don't change your scores. I'm telling you, I've seen all kinds of tricks." Lu Feng took the paper and said. "The trick of changing scores is too low level. Why don't I hide a blank paper in advance, fill in the answers myself, and judge the paper myself? Isn't it better than changing scores?" Lu Feng was already on the spot, looking at her with wide eyes. How could this little bastard have so many clever ideas? I went back and looked through the paper. It was indeed good. I got 96 points in Chinese, full marks in mathematics, and perfect marks in block letters. There were no big problems. Moreover, some of the slogans in the paper were written by adults. Even so, Lu Feng now doubted whether the paper had been tampered with. "If the results are true and you do well in the exam, you can give her a reward." Lu Feng handed her the paper and said, "Now is the time for you to study, don't be so clever. Why do children need so much money? Our family doesn't short of money, right? It's not that I'm short of money, I just see those people with some money in their pockets, and I feel itchy. Duo raised his head and said helplessly, they are stupid. I see, I can't educate you, go home. Lu Feng started the car and drove home. At 7:30 in the evening, Zhang Fengxia was sitting on the sofa, eating melon seeds, and Duo was standing by the wall with red eyes. Zhang Xiaoyan was so angry that she shouted like a shrew with slippers in her hand, how many times have I told you? What is this? What's wrong? Whose child is like yours? You might as well piss me off to death. I was wrong, Duo never dared to do it again. Duo choked and looked pitiful. While wiping her tears with her arms, she said, I know what I did was not good. It's my fault for making you angry, it's all my fault. Just keep beating me. If you're tired of beating me, let Aunt Zhang beat me or let Dad beat me. As long as you're happy, you can beat me to death. Zhang Fengxia couldn't stand listening anymore and said hurriedly, 2 strokes are enough. My child has done so well in the exam. It's the end of the year and it's the new year. It has nothing to do with the Chinese New Year. How old is she? A child who cares about food but not about beatings. You are in school now. If you go out into society, do you know what will happen to you? Zhang Xiaoyan shouted. Duo sobbed and nodded, saying, just like Dad. Everyone was speechless for a while. Seeing this, Lu Feng hurriedly said, okay, let's fight. She is not a 3 or 5-year-old child. Let's figure it out for ourselves. How is the arrangement in the factory going? All the orders for the end of the year have been arranged. The workers will have a holiday in a while, so there will be no big deal. Zhang Fengxia said to Lu Feng, what? You have already taken a holiday. I'm officially giving myself a day off today. I'm thinking of going to Sanya in the next 2 days to spend the new year, Lu Feng said to the crowd. Zhang Xiaoyan said nothing. Lu Feng had told her before, and Duo also seemed eager to give it a try. Only Zhang Fengxia looked a little embarrassed and looked at Lu Feng. Lu Feng didn't know what to say. Although this kind of relationship was not mentioned by everyone and it was a happy relationship, it was a bit awkward during the Chinese New Year. We couldn't really become a family over time. However, this family seems to no longer be embarrassed by the presence of Zhang Fengxia. It seems that they are used to having such a person. Maybe time can really make the impossible become possible. Then I'll clean up the house tomorrow, and Fengxia will go make arrangements for the factory. Let's go together. It's really time to relax, Zhang Xiaoyan suggested. Oh, okay. Remember to bring your swimsuit when the time comes. It's still very hot over there, so you can play in the water. Zhang Xiaoyan took the initiative. Then let me tell my family. Zhang Fengxia looked at Lu Feng with ripples in her eyes. It seemed that many problems were no longer problems at this moment. This is how the world is. From the beginning of not accepting, being embarrassed, and being unable to face it, you slowly begin to accept it, and even begin to enjoy and recognize it as time changes. On the 3rd day, on the plane flying to Sanya, a family of 4 was sitting in the first-class cabin. This was also their first vacation. Lu Feng was in a very good mood. Looking at the 3 people, he was suddenly stunned. This family of 4 seemed not to have any little relationship. A family in bulk. As the plane landed, the sea view villa here had already been arranged. The sea was right outside the door, and it was equipped with various play equipment. After arriving for more than 10 days, it was just eating, drinking and having fun every day. It was not a happy life. Schroeder Investment Group conducted another investigation on Lu Feng, especially in various risk assessments. The final result was that the risk level was exactly the same as before. In this way, Lu Feng's actions were entirely due to his personal reasons. John opened an agreement with the senior management. After a meeting, the board of directors' consent was signed. In Xiangjiang, Mr. Feng has returned home, but has completely transformed a bedroom into a professional ICU rescue room. The most professional medical team in Xiangjiang is stationed all year round. He is in good spirits and can sit up on his own. Compared to last year, it's not even a bit worse. The sun was shining brightly in the yard. Mr. Feng looked at Feng Xiao from his wheelchair and said, "Your eldest brother and your second brother are not coming back." Feng Xiao's eyes turned red when he heard this, and he choked up and said, "I had a quarrel with them on the phone. You've become like this and don't even come back to see you. I really don't know what's the use of them. Did you say on the phone that I love you the most and I gave you all my assets, so you should take care of me?" Mr. Feng asked weakly. Feng Xiao nodded and said nothing. "Forget it, whether I understand it or not, he is still my son. Xiao, Dad can't hold it anymore. I don't know when it will happen. You have to grow up." "I heard Jenkins said that Lu Feng has to unload all positions," Mr. Feng asked. "I don't know what's going on. I want to call Brother Feng and ask. He's on holiday." "Stop, Brother Feng. Business is business. There is nothing like that. Do you understand? You have the power in your hands now. If you hold on to his chain, don't underestimate the 10% vote. If there is a fight in the future, your right to vote will be crucial." Mr. Feng looked particularly angry. Feng Xiao didn't dare to contradict him, for fear of another accident, so he nodded hurriedly. The company hasn't developed yet, so he shouldn't run away. Don't worry. As long as, let me tell you, which department of GFN Electronics is the most valuable. Since Lu Feng stagnated market development and spent money on research and development, you should be able to see that the R/U0026D company is the golden egg of this group. Schroeder's group has seen it, Lu Feng has seen it, and everyone who invested in GFN has seen it. I don't know who will take away the golden egg in the end. But with your character, you can't fight against those people shareholders, so you just need to remember one thing: you must not let Lu Feng privatize the R/U0026D company. As long as he is in this quagmire, you can rest easy and learn to use your 10% voting power to balance the directors. Bureau, do you understand? I know. Feng Xiao nodded. Feng Xiao knew very well what his father meant. He just didn't want to think of people so bad, let alone do it. How great would it be if everyone was happy? So, I agree to the matter of resigning. As long as it does not affect the fundamental interests, there is no need to have too much presence on the board of directors for some small things, otherwise it will offend people. Remember, some insignificant things you have to learn to be reconciled when it comes to things, and let things go in a joking manner. Once you encounter core interests, you must be firm. Okay, I understand, please stop saying a few words. The weather is so nice, so let's get more sunshine. Feng Xiao comforted. I'm afraid that I'll leave suddenly one day and I won't even have time to tell you. What nonsense are you talking about? Christmas has passed, Wall Street elites have returned to work, and the documents submitted by Eisen have also been noticed by Lambert and Goldman Sachs executives. After reading the document, Lambert's face darkened and he said solemnly, "He is playing with fire." "What's wrong?" Mr. Lambert Saras, who was sitting opposite, asked. Lambert handed over the folder in his hand and said, "We are about to face a crisis, but I didn't expect that this crisis was actually caused by a small Chinese company." After reading through it, Saras shook his head and said, "Damn it, this is really not a good decision, but I think if I use these things to question the countries in Europe, they will never admit it. Sure, you know that's a piece of shit and Britain is a stick. Ha 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 ha. The international situation is turbulent. It has only been calm for a few years." Lambert looked at Saras and asked, "Do you think war will come?" Saras shook his head and said, 3 wars are no longer possible, but I think the next step may be to shift from technological competition to financial war. Anyway, the new year has arrived, cheers. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 989. Latest website. This report was submitted quickly. For many Americans, this is definitely a good opportunity. Regardless of whether it is true or false, as long as you take this exaggerated report, you can ask for a budget. For many Americans, as for the leaders, as long as the state approves the money and tomorrow it is said that aliens may call, they will all say in unison that we have obtained relevant evidence of aliens. A storm is brewing. At the same time, all domestic units were about to have a holiday and needed to wrap up their work for the year. All letters were sorted out, and Lu Feng's letter was found among them. A clerk in the letter collection office of the Academy of Sciences looked at the letter in his hand and felt a little undecided. Compared with other letters, this letter was obviously not heavy enough to read. They were all very large state-owned enterprises and local units. This was at best a small letter. Larger private enterprises. Team leader, here is a letter from GFN Electronics, about the development of integrated circuits. The clerk looked at the team leader, and it was obvious what category this letter was classified into. The first type is reported before the year, the second type is handled by the responsible department after the year, the third type is a simple reply from the general office, and the fourth type is the envelope returned to the original route. Generally speaking, this kind of letter is simply replied by the general office, and that's it. GFN Electronics is the largest private enterprise in the country, and this strength cannot be ignored. The team leader said without raising his head, "How many times have I told you, we will handle what can be handled. If we can't handle it and we are not afraid of offending, we will go back the way we came. If we can't handle it and we can't afford to offend, let the higher UPS handle it." To offend. The clerk thought about it and decided that he couldn't afford to offend him, so he put it directly in the category where the department in charge would reply to the letter after the year. Lu Feng has a very deep understanding of how to promote the work of departments. These departments in charge receive countless letters from all over the country every day. If he writes a letter, it will probably just go to waste. Although Mr. Ni held a false position in the R/U0026D company, he only received a salary, not to mention that he was very enthusiastic about the independent development of core technologies. Lu Feng called him several times this year, asking him to help promote this matter and push the letter forward. During this period, Mr. Ni made several calls to the Academy of Sciences to inquire about this matter. Seeing that there were less than 20 days left before the Chinese New Year, he still didn't hear any news. He felt a little anxious. He picked up the phone and called again. Called the person in charge of the department. "Hello, I'm Ni Guangnan." Mr. Ni said into the phone, "I want to ask, have you received the letter from GFN Electronics yet?" "Ouch, Mr. Ni, how many letters do we receive every day? You can't call me every now and then. This is the work unit, not GFN's backyard." The voice on the other end of the phone was a little unhappy. "I'm not taking money from anyone to speak for anyone, I just think this matter is very necessary. It will be an important weapon for the country," Ni Guangnan said anxiously. "Tell me, machine tools, port cranes, shield machines, various engineering machines for bridges, various software, hardware, and people's livelihood-related things, which one is not an important weapon of the country?" Mr. Ni was a little confused. "It's really important for you to help me. We can't let a big private enterprise like GFN fight alone. Once it develops, the domestic industrial chain will rise, and it will drive a large area." Okay, it's all about your face." "Okay, thank you." At the same time, Huang Youwei was also working hard to recommend Lu Feng's letter through provincial units. Not only Huang Youwei, but also the Shenzhen local government, industry associations, embassies, and the fourth team were all working hard to promote it. Several letters were submitted through various channels. In less than 3 days, they were filled with circles and were finally delivered to the core figures of each major unit. The country has been keeping an eye on some foreign news, but some things are hard to talk about. For private enterprises, they mostly acquiesce and can do whatever is not prohibited by law. An impromptu meeting was held and experts from relevant fields were invited for discussion. There have been relevant subsidy policies for integrated circuits before, but whether to increase the intensity still needs to be discussed. In the conference room, the atmosphere was a bit serious. Subsidy development is definitely needed. Semiconductors are a high-tech industry and an area blocked by foreign countries. If private enterprises can do it, it is naturally best. The key is that the international containment of GFN electronics has begun. If we rashly increase subsidies, some people will think that we have given instructions, which will make GFN even more unsafe. I agree with this consideration, but because they are encircling us, we won't do anything, so don't do anything. I believe this letter was written by Lu Feng after thinking about it. He also said above that a lonely tree cannot support itself. Even if GFN Electronics rises and there are no supporting companies in the country, it will fall sooner or later. This is a dilemma, but we have to make a choice, seize the opportunity of history, and break through when it's time to break through. What do you think? The meeting lasted for more than 2 hours. After comprehensive consideration of all aspects, it was decided to gradually increase subsidies, lower the threshold for relevant enterprises, implement tax rebate subsidies, encourage private enterprises to join the industry, and adopt special R/U0026D subsidy methods to provide subsidies based on the proportion of R/U0026D investment, tax refund, and other related measures. Compared with directly investing money, this method can encourage potential companies that want to conduct research and development. After the plan is formed, the plan will be submitted for approval, which is estimated to be completed in half a year. On the surface, various stock and securities transactions on Wall Street are continuing as usual, but privately, there are undercurrents. Technology companies in Silicon Valley have begun to pay attention to European-related companies, and senior executives have begun to make frequent calls. People at any level are hinting that you don't mess around. We are busy with Fuzhou now. If you want to get involved, think about it yourself. Don't let the father and son team up to mess with you. You say bullying. People in London always said in communication, I didn't do anything, I'm so good, what GFN Electronics does has nothing to do with me. You shouldn't be nagging me about this. You should be nagging Huaxia. Fuzhou-related companies have also noticed GFN Electronics R/U0026D budget. A series of companies such as Sony, Toshiba, and Panasonic have held meetings to study this matter. They will never allow a third party to appear when the two are strong. Xi Watanabe even jumped up and down to encourage this matter, hoping that Fuzhou Enterprises would stand with Wall Street and take down GFN Electronics first. On January 23, 1995, there were still 7 days before New Year's Eve. The weather in Sanya was 27 degrees above zero. The 4 people who had been here for half a month had almost finished playing. It was extremely hot outside and no one wanted to go out. Lying on the sofa watching TV, Zhang Fengxia was wearing a small suspender belt and shorts on her lower body. She was half lying on the sofa. Her posture was quite enchanting. Lu Feng glanced over and couldn't help but pause for a moment. Zhang Xiaoyan sensed that something was wrong with him and looked over. Lu Feng hurriedly looked away, coughed, and said, "It's almost 5 o'clock, what are you doing at night?" "I don't want to do anything. I'm tired from playing. Before I came here, I thought about soaking in the sea every day, but now I don't want to live in the sun anymore." Zhang Fengxia turned around and smiled at Zhang Xiaoyan, "I suddenly miss winter." "Then you go back to spend the winter dressed like this." Zhang Xiaoyan glanced at her thighs. Zhang Fengxia took a look at herself and realized something. She hurriedly sat up, pulled down her shorts, and felt a little uncomfortable sitting there and said, I forgot there was a man. Duo sat on the small bench diagonally opposite and shouted, "Aunt Zhang, it's okay, my dad likes to watch this." Zhang Fengxia and Zhang Xiaoyan instantly looked at Lu Feng. Lu Feng was embarrassed and at a loss and said, "I didn't teach her this, and I don't like watching it that much." "Didn't you say that there is a boss who wants to have dinner with you? Why don't we go out for a meal? We are all bored during this period," Zhang Xiaoyan asked Zhang Fengxia. "Huh? That boss doesn't feel very good. He might have something in mind." "Forget it," Zhang Fengxia felt a little confused. "It's okay. He's here. It's fun to listen to people bragging. I'll start preparing things for the new year tomorrow," Zhang Xiaoyan said eagerly. "Fine." Zhang Fengxia contacted the boss. He was very happy when he heard that they agreed to have dinner together. After agreeing on a place, the two went upstairs to change clothes. Lu Feng and Duo were the only two people left in the living room. Duo saw that Lu Feng was a little scared and whispered, "Dad, did I say the wrong thing just now? Will you hit me?" "How could it be? Come, Daddy will give you a red envelope, lucky money." Lu Feng took out a few hundred yuan from his pocket and handed it directly to Duo. In a convertible, a young man in his mid-20s held a mobile phone in his hand and said to the phone, "Let me tell you, this woman tonight is definitely not an ordinary woman. Good looks are the most basic thing, and she also has money. Let me tell you, I don't feel anything about those vases that have no ambition, are just like a family, and have nothing but skin. If you want to play, let's play with those who have strength and academic qualifications. Educated? Why, are you messing with her brain? Listen to what you said, it is full of a dirty atmosphere. Are you coming tonight? Let me tell you in advance. If you act like a second-rate person, don't come here to embarrass me. What you want is a gentleman and a high-end person. Do you understand? Hey, Erluju, when did you get involved with high-end products? Go away, why don't you try calling me a nickname again?" The man seemed to have his tail stepped on. Okay, I'm sure people in suits and ties will attend. Let's see how high-end your high-end restaurant is, and what the educated and capable woman you mentioned looks like." After saying this, the other end of the phone hung up. Donkeyju looked at a group of beauties in swimsuits playing on the beach in the distance. He smacked his lips and said, "Vulgar. It's too vulgar. As a young and promising person like me, who has become rich with his strength, I should get some elegant. Latest website.